Hello, everyone. I'm David Morris, publisher for Lake Drive Books, and I'm joined today with Cynthia Vacca Davis, author Cynthia Davis, to talk about her book, Intersection. I'm excited for this time. This is just a little time for you, the potential reader or reader of the book, to get to know Cynthia a little bit better, to hear her own words, what this book is about. And I think you'll find this very inspiring and interesting, and to put a human face on this amazing book. So with that, Cynthia, tell us about yourself. What is it that you do, and how'd you get here in life?
How did I get here in life? That is the question. Thank you, David. How did I get here in life? Well, I am, to tell it just a little bit about myself, I am a professor, and that was a long journey to get to finally have that title, to be a professor. That was something that happened to me, a late bloomer, but I finally got there. And the same with my writing. I have been writing since I think the first known work that we have found was a little pamphlet that I wrote when I was 7 called My Little Tree. So I have been writing my entire life, and just kind of circling around these passions of mine. Well, I'm also doing other things, because life has that way of throwing things at you that maybe you don't expect. And so I was an art teacher, I was a youth minister, I was a mom. And all the while, I was a reporter, all the while just kind of funneling in toward these passions. I had to one day be a professor, and one day be a writer with a book, and be a professor with a book. And so I finally, I finally gotten there, and
You have gotten there.
it feels so good.
Yay. Well, great. So just tell us how you came about this book, Intersection. This is a unique book.
It is. There's a
yeah.
lot going on. For the longest time, when people would, I was writing this for about 6 years, and a
Yeah.
lot of that time people would say, well, we know you're writing this manuscript, we hear you talk about the manuscript all the time, what's it about? And because it is a parallel journey, it's a story in two voices. It's two different stories, my friend Danny's and mine, and they merge together.
Mm.
And it's very much around these themes that Danny was living through, I was living through, and we had this moment where we really forged a friendship that was kind of unexpected. We went to the same church, and I was adjuncting. Basically, a lot of people don't know that an adjunct professor is kind of like you're an itinerant worker in academia. And I'm circling around, I'm going to 3 different universities in 2 states. I am like, my schedule is huge. And in the back of my mind, I'm kind of hoping one of these universities is going to offer me a really good job, because that's why I'm doing it. I'm trying to cobble together a job at all these different places, and I'm
Yeah.
just hoping somebody's going to notice the work I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
So,
And by the way, I think a lot of people must know, but it's worth saying adjuncting is hard work. It's low pay. It's not a lot of advocacy. You're having to adapt to wherever you're going, and it's just hard work. And you've
it's
been
hard
doing
work.
it. Mhm.
It's hard work. And a lot of people would say, well, why are you doing it? Because I'm passionate about it. I love my students at all the places I was teaching. I love them, and I loved what I was doing. But yeah, hard work, hard to build community, hard to feel a part of things. And while that's going on, I'm also attending this church, where at this church, it was for the first time I was starting to feel safe and secure. It was a church that kind of invited questions and diversity more than I had ever seen before. So I'm kind
Mhm.
of thriving in this church environment, and I'm kind of excited about my professional life, even though it was hard. I'm thinking something's going to give here, and somebody's going to offer me a really good job, right?
Mhm.
And then it just kind of happened. One day, it was mid-semester. One of the schools I was teaching at, the one furthest from my house, actually, I was driving an hour each way. And they said, hey, listen, we have an immediate need for a permanent tenure track professor. There's been kind of a accreditation audit, and we need to make a hire. And it was a small little school. It's like, you're it. You are got the credentials. I mean, just barely, because at this point I was still working on my MFA. And I'm thinking, this doesn't just happen. It does not just happen in the middle of a semester. You get offered this tenure track job that is this, it's like a holy grail in academia. And I'm like, I couldn't even believe it. I could not believe that this had fallen in my lap. But at the same time, at church, I was getting to know one of my friends a little bit better on a deeper level. And at this point, this is my friend Danny, but Danny with an I, as in female.
Mhm.
And Danny was actually, it was Danny's partner that I had been friends with first. And I thought that they were a lesbian couple. And as it turned out, the more I started to get to know Danny, I was realizing there was something. Danny seemed depressed. There were some things going on. And one day we met up at a sandwich shop, and it was the truth. It was this moment of truth where Danny says, "Guess what? I'm actually not Danny with an I. I'm Danny with a Y. I'm male.
Mhm.
I'm intersex. I didn't know that word at the time." Danny said, "You may have heard of a hermaphrodite. That's an old term that we don't use anymore. But basically," he said, "I'm both. I am both male and female, but my female side is not what I identify with. And actually, there were physical realities, like
Right.
everything female about Danny was dying and falling apart.
Mm.
And he had some surgeries, and now I started to understand what was happening. And Danny says, "I've been sitting on this for my entire life. I've never told my family. I have never told my friends. This is, I've been afraid I'm going to lose my church family. I may lose my biological family. I have not told a single soul that this is what's been going on with me."
How
But
frightening. What a
yeah.
life, what a life
Oh
for
yeah.
someone to lead. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
I couldn't believe it. And he said, "I'm terrified." And some mutual friends at church told me that you and your husband, Brad, he was with me. He said, "You guys, I know you guys are safe people. I've listened to you, things you've said, and what people have told you. I know you're safe people, and I am trying to build a community of safe people around me before I start going out and telling my story. And I want to go forward in my life as the person I am. And this is the most terrifying thing." I said, "Yes, yes, yes. I'm going to support you. I mean, that's a no-brainer." But then in this interview process for this job I had just been offered, I was right there. I was about to sign papers, and they said, "Oh, by the way, we have something else that you're going to need to sign before you take this job." They called it a marriage and family statement. And gay marriage had just been legalized in Virginia. It had not been federally passed yet, but it had been in Virginia. And in this neighboring state, North Carolina, they were kind of anticipating that this might have an impact, and they wanted their donors to know where they stood. They felt it was very important to come out with a statement, and they listed what they considered to be um, acceptable ways to live. Like, you are male or female, if you are gay, if you are non-binary. They listed every kind of variation they could think of it that wasn't, "I'm a straight person in a heterosexual relationship." And they said,
Right. Right.
this is repugnant to God, and the principles of the university. Repugnant was the word. And they said, "You need to sign this if you're going to work here." And then all of a sudden, I'm thinking of this conversation I just had with Danny. "I'm going to support you in this most terrifying thing that you're facing." Um, and then now I'm at this crossroads where all of this ambition meets this promise of support and friendship. I'm at this crossroads that
Ambition meets promise and friendship. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that was like my moment where I had to decide, who am I? Who am I as an ally? Because I had been identifying as an ally for a long time, but
Mhm.
that hadn't cost me anything. It didn't
Right.
cost me a thing, because I just happened to be in a situation where I knew a lot of people who identified as queer. Um, and they were some of my best friends. And sure, it's easy to enjoy their company and it's easy to have a meal around a table and just, yeah, these are my friends. But what did that cost me other than I got to have the benefit of their friendship? And
Right.
now
Right.
being a true friend was going to cost me something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being an ally was going to cost me something. Or, a couple of people were like, you don't have to tell them. Just
Yeah.
sign the paper. You don't have to tell them.
Right.
I
So
did feel right.
let's just say it a little more out loud. This was a college that was a religious college, a Bible college, as we like to
Yes.
call it.
Yep.
And you grew up in a maybe a little bit of a mixed, or no, there was some fundamentalist background for you, evangelical.
I call it a cornucopia. I went to a lot of churches, and
Yeah.
my father, I love my father so much. When he realized that, the Christian life was something that he wanted to follow, he didn't want to miss anything. So he went to a lot of different churches and tried a lot of different things. I went to Baptist church, Bible Baptist church, independent church, charismatic church, Presbyterian church, Methodist church. I'm sure I'm missing a few. And in this process, I'm seeing that there was overlap, but there were also things like, oh, we do this at the Baptist church, but at the Presbyterian church, we don't, or at the charismatic church, we do things that we would never do in these other churches. And there didn't seem to be a uniform, I guess, set of rules that translated from each congregation to the next. So I started to get this idea that Christianity was a little bit bigger, maybe, than each individual church realized.
But you're in this Bible college situation, signing this being asked to sign this document. It's part of why you were there.
Right.
It was also just a job.
It was, in many ways. It was a job. And as we said, the whole adjunct life is it's a hard thing. You cannot make a reasonable living wage really just working with what one university is going to throw at you. So you kind of have to, you want to make the money, you have to take the opportunities that come. So yeah, in some ways it was a job, and in other ways it was like, this was a college that was affiliated with a church denomination that I had been in for a long time as an adult. Yeah.
So you're at a turning point, as well as is Danny.
As well as Danny. We're both at this intersection.
Yeah. I mean, you're at a faith turning point in a way as well, which was perhaps building.
Yep.
So what happened next?
What happened next is, as I mentioned earlier, Danny and I went to the same church, and it was a church that seemed pretty open and pretty welcoming. And Danny was actually working as a youth leader in that church, main youth minister, volunteer position. But that was another thing that he said, I'm going to lose this. I'm going to lose this if I tell my truth. And to our shock and amazement, he didn't, not at first. At first, everyone kind of rallied around him, and it was kind of presented as a medical issue. And when intersex is kind of this strange space on this continuum with LGBTQI, I being intersex, because it's verifiably a medical thing. There are physical realities that a lot of people think, oh, well, trans people are just choosing that. Oh, one day you just want to be something that you're not.
Right.
It's not that way with intersex. So that's kind of this interesting sort of
you can't ignore what's there.
Right. So people kind of accepted it first, like, oh, okay, we understand that. We can understand that. We can support you. We can understand that. But then when Danny started to really physically change and started to really live life as a man, like wanting to date women, that's where the church started saying, oh, whoa, we're not so comfortable with this. And kind of passive aggressively, just stopped supporting anything that Danny was trying to do with the youth. And I was working with him at the time. So they kind of stopped supporting things I was doing, where I had been, I'd been the creative arts director at this church. And all of a sudden, anything I was doing with the arts just wasn't a priority anymore. And it was just, we were just getting shoved to the margins.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
happened next. And that's
Yeah.
when that fueled this. Okay, so I kind of got the boot out of the Christian university. Now I'm getting the boot out of my church,
Right.
and my
Right.
community's falling apart.
Right. Right. And then so the book talks about like Danny growing up, the first half of the book, or first third, right?
Right.
And that's really something. We won't go into it now. We want to try to keep this short for people, but it's really something to hear Danny's experiences growing up in his family and in his evangelical community, which he adores. By the way,
Yes.
big Amy Grant fan.
Yeah, huge Amy Grant fan.
Yeah.
He took me to an Amy Grant concert for Christmas a couple years ago.
There you go.
I loved Amy Grant too, but Danny never stopped. I asked him, so how long was your Amy Grant phase? He said, wait a minute, how long was it? I'm still in it.
And an Amy Grant mobile, right?
He had an Amy Grant mobile.
Yeah.
It was in Yellow Vega. And it was,
man.
In the Yellow Vega, you could only listen to Amy Grant or artists associated with Amy Grant, like Michael W. Smith, Renee Garcia. And he had some sort of a button that he cut up and got two buttons, and he made it so it was the window ornament, and it showed the Unguarded album cover. So that was the Amy Grant mobile.
And then the second third is your story, which we've heard some of just now.
Yeah.
And you're also a person who is big about community.
Yeah.
You liked having youth group kids over. You liked holding meetings, sharing a table together.
Yes.
That's really important to you. So losing your church is huge. Losing a community is huge.
Huge, like gut-wrenching. Huge.
Yes. So then the final thirds of the story is just what happened next, which we've heard some of that as well. Tell us, maybe to just sort of fast forward a little bit, tell us what you hope people will get out of reading your book. Maybe talk a little bit about, authenticity, which is in the subtitle, and intersection, which is the title of the book.
Right. So obviously Danny was at this place where he was going to have to go forward in life and find out who he truly was as a person. He was giving himself this freedom to be who he always was on the inside. And I'm realizing then that I had a similar choice to make, because if I rejected the university's offer, which I did, spoiler alert, that I was going to be, I wasn't going to be able to hide behind kind of a vague sort of stance anymore. I was coming out and I'm saying, hey, these are my people. These are my friends, the queer community. These are my friends. And this is how I feel about it. I felt like I was trading this job for having like my own voice. So now I'm kind of stepping into who I am on the inside. I'm not going to be quiet or vague or talk doublespeak about anything. I'm going to say what I think about whatever I want to now. So if I'm going to give up this job, I'm going to talk about it.
Go. Yeah.
So that's kind of then in my friendship with Danny, because we became very, very good friends to this day. He's just one of my very best friends. And that was just kind of this freeing sort of, we both had this permission to be whoever we wanted to be going forward. Yeah. And that's what that third, the book is in three parts: Danny's story, my story, and then our story, building this friendship as our actual, true, authentic selves outside of church, outside of the rules and the dogma that maybe we've had to work around, to work in youth ministry, to teach at a Bible school, and as it turned out, to even attend our church. We had to find out who we really were on the inside.
Yeah. And what is that experience like on a day-to-day basis? How do you feel about yourself now? I mean, you don't have that tenure track job, that tenured job.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have the tenured job. I was a little bit bitter and salty for a while, and then I really settled in kind of at one university with that, just being an adjunct. But the pandemic happened, and because I have a voice now, I got super noisy about how the adjuncts were being treated and
Okay.
things I wanted
Yeah.
for our adjunct community. And I found that the more, and not just at work, but everywhere, the more myself I became and the more I let myself be seen, I started getting more and more friends. And I started having more and more people in my life, and things started to change at work. Every adjunct now at my job has an office, every adjunct. And before that, we were just kind of like floating around with backpacks,
Yeah.
and finding any old place to sit. Every adjunct has an office now.
Yeah.
And I have so many friends that I would not have had in my life before. When you're in church, you're taught to see people outside of that church community as,
yeah, good point. Yeah.
Those are the people you witness to. They aren't the people
you found
really,
a wider,
right.
You found more connections, more community.
So many more
It may not look like what we thought it was supposed to look like, but it's there nonetheless.
Right.
And it's growing or developing. It's changing. I mean, it's a changing world we're in. So we all have to sort of have that patience for finding community. Yeah.
Exactly. And I also had to expand my definition of community, because I kind of attributed it to growing up with Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and who are the people in your neighborhood. Like, I just kind of thought community was like the stable sort of thing, and that you don't rock the boat. You've got to keep your community together. And now I realize that community is what you're doing with the people around you today. That's your community. Yeah. Those are your people. And realizing that you can make even little temporary communities in an airport or, where you're waiting in line, the people around you, that's your community. Make something of it. And if you're really lucky, you're going to carry that into other places in your life. I found two of my very best friends were at my job where I was adjuncting and having a hard time making community. After I started kind of making some noise about adjunct rights, two of those women just came to me and agreeing with a lot of the things I was saying. And then we became really, really good friends. They're just part of my everyday life now.
So by way of wrapping up, talk about that word intersection. Obviously, we know what it is when it's in the title. It's intersexion. Right. It's a play on the word. Right. But it's there very intentionally. It is. And talk about how you look at an intersection.
So intersections, if you think about it, they're places of maybe chance happenings, chance meetings. A lot of things happen at intersections, near misses, connections. There's good and there's bad things that can happen at intersections. Intersections are places you just end up. Someone's going one place, you're going another place, in a very literal sense, but also in a metaphoric sense, like Danny. Danny's going on his journey to be himself. I'm going on my journey, and we collide. And what you do at those intersections can be life-changing. It just, you find yourself there through perhaps no decision or no fault of your own. You're just at this intersection.
And yet you have a decision.
You do. Then now all of a sudden you have a decision, and what you do from there can change your life forever.
For the good. Yeah.
For the good. Yeah.
Or not.
Let's
not think about that.
We're hoping for the good, but
well, this has been great. I'm gonna let you talk a little bit more by asking you is there anything else that you want people to know about the book or yourself? And I'm going to flash a little graphic on the screen for everybody.
What I want people to know is that living your truest, most authentic life is a very freeing experience. And one of the things that has been happening, I have this wonderful launch team that has been reading the book ahead of everyone else and sharing their experiences with me as they have read. And I have had some very amazing conversations with the people on my launch team about authenticity, and about people have come to me and talked about ways that they felt that they needed to have more of it in their
Hmm.
lives, and they
That's
needed to
awesome.
start sharing their stories. There is power in your story and in sharing your story and stepping into your truth. And I'm seeing it
Yes.
with just my launch team. Like, you've motivated me to be authentic. And if that helps anybody, it's a success.
Yay. Absolutely.
Yay.
Well, it's called, as you can see, hopefully on the screen, Intersection, a story of faith, identity, and authenticity. It is going to be, we're talking as the book is about to launch, but it will be available at retailers everywhere. And let Cynthia know what you think about the book. Leave a review on Amazon. Get in touch with her through, how do we get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, cynthiavaccadavis.com. I have a little place where you can put in your email, and you are on my email list, which I prefer to call a community. We're building a community of people around this book. That's what I want more than anything. So I would love for people to come to my website, sign up for my newsletter, join my community. And it's just a place where we can support each other, ask tough questions, come out to the world as who we are, all of us.
And if you're part of a group, even a church group, perhaps, that would like to talk about this book or talk about the issue of authenticity, if not LGBTQIA plus sexuality, Cynthia could be an excellent person to have, and would be very happy to meet with your group. I'm her publisher, so I'm asking you, make some book sales happen.
Please. Yeah. On the
But,
back of the book somewhere, it says it's a story about coming out and coming into your own, whether it's you're on the LGBTQI spectrum, whether it's just you're somebody who asks tough questions, whether, no matter who you are, you need to be able to get to the point where you embrace who you are and come into the world as yourself.
Yes. Great words to end on. Thanks so much, Cynthia, for this time.
Thank you, David.
I'm really pleased to be your publisher. This is such an exciting book. Yeah.
The whole story of how we connected is a whole other conversation.
There you go.
It is amazing. And I am so thankful every day.
Thank you. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, David. Bye.